What's up, everyone? We are diving back into the multiverse today for another epic. What if Naruto x Harem x Samui x Yugito x Fu Naruto x Harem Part 2? If you enjoy this story, make sure to hit that like button and subscribe to the channel for more fanfics like this. Now, let's dive right into the fanfic. Naruto was very eager to begin his journey into becoming a great ninja and eventually the best Kage in history. He was still an hour early before I arrived. And since he had slept all day yesterday, now was a good time for him to start reading the scrolls that the old Raikage had given him. Maybe I should learn more about chakra, says the 4-year-old blonde to himself. But that was only a general term regarding the subject. He wanted to know more. How it works, how to control it, and how to use it. Thankfully the scroll I had given him was well explained and easy to understand for someone his age. He was surprised and awed by the unlimited potential of what chakra could do. Especially for someone who has a tremendous amount of chakra reserves and excellent chakra control. Thanks to his furry, little, friend, he had the first part covered. But the downside is, having too much chakra can be very difficult to control, according to the scroll. He decided, then and there, that chakra control should be his main priority. But he still has his work cut up for him. After an hour of reading, Naruto didn't even notice that his Gigi was arriving at the training ground behind him. But he wasn't alone. Standing next to him was one of the Raikage's most trusted bodyguards and elite ninjas. An Anbu. This Anbu is a fairly tall, dark-skinned man with a slightly bulbous nose, black eyes that usually look bored, and shaggy, white hair which covers his left eye. He wears a high-collared, sleeveless uniform with loose-fitting pants, bandages on his wrists, and the one strap over one shoulder flak jacket of a Kumogakure shinobi. His mask was a white face split by a black lightning strike. When the Anbu and the old Raikage arrived at the training ground and saw a little boy sitting on the ground and reading a scroll from a distance, the young Anbu couldn't help but wonder why the Raikage decided to take on a new student. What made this particular child so special that he would give him the time of day and temporarily postpone his other important duties as the village's leader? But then the boy turned to face them, and when he saw his blonde hair, he recognized him as Naruto. Raikage's grandson. Good morning, Naruto-kun. I'm surprised you came so early, said the old man to the little blonde. Of course, grandfather. This is the beginning of my road to ninjahood. Wait, is that even a word? Ha ha ha, I like your energy, Naruto-kun. But, I hope you are prepared to take your training very seriously. Because, as of now, you must address me as sensei. And as your sensei, I won't pull my punches. You wanted me to make you a strong shinobi. And I will do all I can. But the rest is up to you. Yes, yes, sensei. I am prepared to do whatever it takes. I promised, remember, that I will become strong enough so I can protect everyone I care about. And I know the road ahead will not be an easy one. But that won't stop me in my dreams. Like I said, I don't go back on my word. That's my ninja way, Naruto said with a bright smile. I couldn't be more prouder of the little blonde boy before him. He could clearly see the determination and fire burning in his eyes. As you know, Naruto-kun, I can't stay and supervise your training for too long, as I have to return to the Raikage Tower soon. When that happens, I will leave you with the capable hands of one of my most talented shinobi. As you can see, he is an Anbu. So his real name will remain unspoken. But you may address him as Dull Sensei. I introduces Naruto to the dark-haired Anbu. This earned a look from the Anbu, and Naruto laughed at the funny name. Nice to meet you, Dull Sensei. I am honored, Naruto spoke with a bow to his second teacher. Now, there's no need to bow. It is nice to meet you, too, Naruto. I'm looking forward to your training. The Anbu, now identified as Dull, finally spoke up to the little blonde. When you are ready, we will begin with the physical exercises to determine your strengths and weaknesses. So firstly, I want you to do 100 push-ups and sit-ups. Afterward, I want you to run 10 laps around the training ground. Next, we shall unlock your chakra flow to help your body recover faster and work harder. Afterward, all the exercises will be doubled until we reach your limitations. I said with a strict tone. Is that all, sensei? Naruto asked nervously, as he knew that this exercise would no doubt exhaust him to the point of blacking out or crawling back home on his belly. Not quite. Lastly, we will work on your taijutsu. Once we determine which fighting kata suits you best, we shall begin your taijutsu training immediately. You will start by learning the basics of the stance and techniques. In the end, we will have a spar, whether it's with Dull or me. Can you handle all of that, Naruto-kun? Why yes. Yes, sensei. I won't let you down. Good. This will be the first stage of your training for the whole month. Let us begin. 5 hours later of intensive training. Naruto was gasping for air from complete exhaustion. His clothes were dirty, and his body was full of bruises. He had done everything that his grandfather sensei instructed. Every time he improves, his training will only intensify. Kyuubi surprisingly had offered to refill him with chakra, but the blonde had refused, saying he was going to do this with his own power. Not someone else. From doing 100 push-ups and sit-ups, become 200 and afterward 400. From doing 10 laps around the large training field, it became 20 and afterward 40. Naruto is almost regretting his new life decision, but he immediately rid himself of those negative thoughts and fully commits his heart and body to his training. He will go through whatever obstacles he has to if it means he will become stronger to protect all his precious people. And he wants to do it with his own strength and power. And the young sensei were very impressed with his surprisingly large stamina. They couldn't help but wonder how this little boy had so much energy at such a young age. They could only suspect it had something to do with the Kyuubi. After a few hours of meditation to help steady his chakra flow, they finally move on to taijutsu training. The old Raikage brought many scrolls regarding shinobi katas for Naruto. Many of the katas were quite difficult for the young blonde, as they required a lot of raw strength and offensive capabilities for the purpose of overpowering their opponent. Judging from the way Naruto trained his punches and kicks on a wooden pole earlier, I came to the conclusion that Naruto is more of a defensive fighter. A little unusual for a shinobi, but he never was the normal type anyway. Luckily, I managed to find one kata that was suitable for him. It was an old forgotten art, but as he continued to read the scroll of the chosen kata, he realized it was absolutely perfect for the little blonde. It is called the wing fist. It was once a traditional fighting style and a form of self-defense. It requires quick arm movements, strong legs, and high stamina. The fighter must be in a relaxing manner at all times, so they will be able to calmly block and counter any opponent's attack with rapid fast strikes. Naruto was excited to finally have his own kata. After learning the requirements of the technique, he began to train the speed of his strikes and reflexes. Luckily I happened to bring the perfect training tool for Naruto's new kata. He pulled out a scroll from his sleeve and unsealed its contents. And from the burst of smoke, it revealed to be a wooden pole. This pole, however, has 3 arms and 1 leg, which represents an opponent's body in various positions and lines of force that the body can give out. The arms and legs are able to move in a 360-degree spin. Once Naruto blocks an arm, it will quickly circle around to hit him on the opposite side. It was the perfect tool to train his blocks and reflexes. He trained on it for 3 hours. Those wooden arms are extremely durable, thus resulting in several bruises on Naruto's forearms and bottom palms from having to block constantly, and some on his face when he failed to block. As the final hours approached, it was time for the sparring session. I wanted to spar with Naruto on his first day of training, but he realized that he should wait a while, at least until Naruto was able to master the wing fist or at least fight adequately with it. Either way, it was time for him to head back to his office. You've made great progress today, Naruto. I'm sure in a week or two, you'll be able to master the wing fist soon enough. But I'm afraid I must leave you now. Your sparring partner today will be Dull. Good luck, my boy, I said with a proud smile. Thank you, grandfather sensei. Oh wait, I need to talk to you later. It's something important. Is it alright if I come by your office once I'm done? Naruto asked. Sure, Naruto. You can always come by my office anytime. But right now, you should focus on your spar. I have already given Dull instructions not to get carried away. All you have to do is land one hit on him, and you win. Farewell, you too. The old rakage says before he shunshin back to his office. Man, I really want to learn that jutsu, Naruto says to himself, once again awed by the convenience factor of that jutsu. You mean the shunshin? I can teach you that if you want, says the dark-haired Anbu, as he overhears the blonde talking to himself. Really? Dull sensei. Naruto yells out excitedly. Quote. No, not really, Dull says with a carefree tone and a smile behind his mask. Quote. Bad Dull sensei. Naruto yells in his squeaky voice, as he is a little annoyed to have his hopes up and be immediately knocked down by the no-name Anbu. Now, don't be like that. Tell you what, if you are able to land a hit on me, I'll teach you the shunshin. But if you lose, you have to buy something for me to eat tonight. And I'm craving something sweet. What? But you're the adult. Shouldn't you be treating me? I'm for crying out loud. Now, Naruto. You are never too young to treat someone you know. Plus, I'm 18, which means I still am technically a teenager and not yet an adult. Naruto pouted a little with his whiskered cheeks, realizing there was no winning against the smart-ass Anbu. Fine. You have a deal. But this bet doesn't end here if I lose. I might lose today, and I might lose tomorrow. But I will land a hit on you eventually. And you will teach me that jutsu. Naruto finishes passionately. Agreed. Now Naruto, show me the results of your training. Here I come, Dull sensei. Naruto and Dull both charged at each other. The fight was obviously one-sided, with the dark-haired Anbu effortlessly winning against the little blonde. Naruto manages to block a couple of punches, but he fails to counter with any of his strikes at the elderly teen. This proves that one day of training isn't enough to beat someone who is considered an elite ninja who has years of experience in combat ahead of him. Dull would constantly knock Naruto down several times. Painfully. But what impressed him the most was that Naruto would constantly get back up on his feet to continue the spar like it was nothing. The boy's tenacity and determination were a welcoming quality for the dark-haired teen. But ultimately, it was all in vain, as after the 36th time Naruto was knocked down without even landing a single hit on Dull, he finally collapsed from exhaustion. Streets of Kumo, nighttime. Naruto eventually woke up but realized he wasn't on his feet or back anymore. Instead, he is being carried piggyback style by the dark-haired Anbu. So you're finally up. Ow. What happens, Dull sensei? You lost. That's what happens. Oh, man. Well, I guess it was expected. But know this, Dull sensei, I will land a hit on you one day, and then you will be the one treating me to sweets. No, even better. Ramen ha ha ha, Naruto says with his squeaky voice, as he pumps his small fist in the air excitedly when thinking about ramen. In your dreams, little man, Dull says with a smile. Naruto pouted his whiskered cheeks at the elderly teen's remark on his developing skills. It wasn't his fault that he had just started his training. By the way, Dull sensei, where are we going? Naruto asked, snapping Dull away from his thoughts as the dark-haired teen responded to his blonde student. Oh, well, since I won our little bet, I'm going to find a place that sells some sweets. And I see one up ahead, says the Anbu, as they were approaching a small store. Dango shop. Huh, I didn't think you're the type who likes dangos, Dull sensei, Naruto asked, slightly surprised. Even I enjoy some sweets now and then, Naruto, Dull admitted. Dull finally put Naruto down and told him to go into the shop and order the dangos for him. As he walks inside and sees the shopkeeper, and in turn, he sees him back. The shopkeeper gave Naruto a questioning stare before nonchalantly welcoming him into the shop like he was any other customer. He then ordered 4 sticks of dangos. 2 for him, 2 for Dull. Naruto then walked up to the dark-haired Anbu and handed him his 2 dangos. What took you so long? I was getting the feeling that you were planning to go back on our bet and run off with my dangos, said Dull to the little blonde. Nope. A deal is a deal. Besides, it wasn't that expensive anyway, Naruto said, but then remembered what he needed to do once his training was over. Oh yeah, I need to see Gigi right away. I have something important to tell him. Oh, right, you mentioned it earlier. Well, come on, I'll give you a lift there. Dull bent down as a gesture to give Naruto another piggyback ride. Thanks, Dull sensei, But wait, can we roof jump? I always wanted to know how it feels like. Naruto asks with hope in his eyes. Hoping that he gets to experience what it feels like to travel like a real ninja. Ha ha ha, how else are we going to reach there quickly? Hold on tight, little man, Dull says before running off and beginning to jump on the roofs of the buildings with a happy, laughing Naruto on his back. 1 month later, he needed to get stronger, and he was willing to train every day and night if he had to make it happen. Naruto had already completed the first month of his training regime with the old Raikage and his Anbu. Naruto's taijutsu significantly improved when he first started. His wing fist fighting style has already reached its peak on his current level and will continue to improve through more training and sparring. The speed of his strikes and reflexes are now fast enough to block most attacks and counter with multiple fast jabs, chops, and elbow shots. Of course, he still won't be able to defeat someone of elite Jonin level like Dull, or obviously a Cage level like I, but his senseis can proudly say that he can stand toe-to-toe and possibly defeat a mid-genin level shinobi in a taijutsu fight. The next phase of his training would be chakra control, which surprised the old Raikage since Naruto is the one who recommended it. I had assumed that the little blonde would eagerly like to move on to his ninjutsu training already. But when he explains his reasons, such as, I still need more time to control the amount of chakra I use. Otherwise, the execution of my jutsus won't be as perfect as I wanted, and I'll end up wasting a lot of my chakra in the process. I also agrees with his reasons. Chakra control may not be the flashiest or the most popular subject when it comes to the younger generation like Naruto. But it is an essential skill to become a strong and skillful ninja. Chakra is the shinobi's greatest power, after all, and if you lose the respect of that power, it will only lead to your early downfall. There are 2 stages he needed to do in order to gain perfect chakra control. The first step is tree walking. It is a training method to gain more beginner-level skills with chakra control. This training involves focusing a fixed amount of chakra on the bottom of one's feet and using that to climb a tree without using one's hands. If the stream of chakra is too weak, the user will lose their footing on the tree and fall off. If it is too strong, the user will be pushed away from the tree, causing the tree to break around the point of contact, and the user will fall. The concept of this exercise is similar to magnetics. The second step is water surface walking. This training method is used to gain more advanced level skills in chakra control. To do this, the user has to be emitting a constant stream of chakra from the bottom of their feet and use the repellent force to walk across the water surface. This technique is more difficult to master than the tree climbing practice because the amount of chakra that needs to be emitted changes constantly. Naruto began with the tree walking exercise, but surprisingly it wasn't as difficult as he thought. He would, of course, fall down a couple of times, but thanks to his previous training, he already knew the basics of how to channel chakra into a certain amount around parts of his body, such as his fist. All he needed to work on now was balancing the amount. It took him around 4 days to finally reach the top of the tree. The old Raikage was very proud of his young student for completing the exercise in such a short time. Yugito wanted to tag along, but right now, her main priority was training on how to use Matabi's chakra. That doesn't mean they have stopped hanging out. The blonde boy made sure to hang out with her almost every day. Yugito had also told him that she had made a new friend, Samui, who was 2 years older than her, but they became good friends very fast. Naruto would hang out with Yugito again 2 days later. Once that was done, they moved on to the water surface walking exercise. But this, however, was slightly more difficult for the whiskered face blonde. The surface of the water is constantly changing, unlike the solid surface of a tree. This exercise lasted for almost 1 week for him. But eventually, he managed to stay on the water's surface without falling in for almost 30 minutes, which is already an impressive start. I smiled with pride at his grandson learning things so fast. Naruto is completely exhausted, both physically and mentally. He had been working to the bone trying to improve his taijutsu and chakra control. The old Raikage then decided to give the little blonde boy some time to rest and recover his strength. Naruto-kun, I am very proud of your progress. But now, I want you to take the week off, to rest. I said, but sensei, I'm fine. I can keep going, Naruto says between deep breaths. I know you want to get stronger, Naruto-kun, but right now, I am more worried about you. You wanted me to intensify your training, which I have, but right now, you can't even stand straight or breath steady anymore. Even the strongest ninjas need rest, my boy. Naruto said nothing as he continued to take slow deep breaths. Quote. You have already completed the first phases of your training, and soon we will move on to ninjutsu and eventually training with your elemental ability. They will be your toughest training yet, which is why I need you to be at 100% by then. This is an order, I said with a serious tone. Yes, sensei, I will do as you wish. Besides, it might not be too bad. I have been craving ramen for days now, Naruto said with an exhausted smile and a drool of saliva from his mouth from the thought of delicious ramen. Ha ha ha, very good, Naruto-kun. Do you want me to shunshin you back home? I asked. Actually, yeah, that would be great. My legs feel like jelly right now, Naruto said with a tired smile. The old man then placed a hand on Naruto's shoulder, and they shunshin away to the little blonde's apartment. Naruto immediately collapsed on his soft bed and fell asleep. The Raikage smiled at the sleeping kid and then shunshin away again, but this time back to his office. Home. Naruto was asleep for one day. The reason why he woke up now was that his stomach was crying out for food. Ramen, in particular. He got off his bed and saw it was now the middle of the evening. He then went to take a long shower first, after realizing he had not cleaned himself up before falling asleep, which he now stinks of sweat. He then put on his clean clothes, which consist of a green long-sleeve shirt, a white short-sleeve t-shirt over them that has a red spiral symbol at the front, and dark blue shorts and sandals. He then went off to his favorite ramen stand, not knowing who he would meet there. While strolling through Kumo's bustling streets, Naruto reflected on his training under his grandfather and father. His musings were cut short when he slammed into someone, sending them both grunting to the ground. After massaging his painful eyes, Naruto turned to face the person he had just crushed. Before his dazzling blue eyes and short blonde hair were met, he thought, I really need to start paying more attention to the road. I apologize, I didn't look where I was going, Naruto said as he got to his feet and extended his hand to her. With a composed expression, the girl took his hand and stood up with him. Upon closer inspection, Naruto realized she was older than him, possibly by 2 or 3 years. It's okay. It's not like I'm heading somewhere I want to be. Her voice was lovely and quiet, and she spoke calmly. Samui Shiryoku, I'm Naruto Yatsuki, he said, wiping his sweat off the back of his head. The girl stopped at the sound of his name and arched an eyebrow. Naruto, you mean Yugito's friend? Samui inquired with a calculated look. Yugito, you are aware of. Naruto paused, then remembered that Yugito had indeed mentioned that he had a new friend named Samui. Upon glancing at the girl, he was sure that she was the same Samui that Yugito had mentioned. Naruto smiled and held out his hand to shake hers. Oh, so you're Samui she's been talking about. Good to meet you, he remarked. Unless there's another Samui around that I'm unaware of, then yeah, that would be me. Samui said with a hint of teasing as she dusted off the dirt from her clothes. So, where were you going? They were still in the middle of the road when Naruto inquired. To my house, Samui said, with a note of irritation in her voice. My uncool parents wanted to talk to me. She seemed somewhat irritated that she had to go back home. Well, that's right. Do you want to join me for ramen then as payment? Naruto kindly said. His father always told him that he should always do something good to everyone, and giving her ramen would be a start. He knew he could talk with her while they ate ramen. He'd been pleased to hear from Yugito that she'd made a new friend, and now that she was standing in front of him, he wouldn't mind having a conversation with her. Though Samui wanted to insist it was nothing, knowing he was giving away free ramen was quite alluring. Besides, it would be a great chance to meet Yugito's friend. From the start, Samui knew Yugito was trying to hide something. She had noticed the foolish people staring at her, and when Samui approached the blonde, she admitted to being a Jinchuriki. Samui didn't understand what was so wrong with that. If Yugito didn't have that big as cat sealed inside her, then the same cat would be somewhere out there, and Samui was sure that she would much rather have it being sealed inside someone she considered a friend, rather than a biju being out there, and potentially eating people, or maybe the last part was just crazy talk. Samui wasn't really sure. Looking at Naruto, Samui remembered how Yugito talked about him. She described him as kind and gentle. Samui wondered how true that was. She knew people could easily tell lies, as easily as breathing. Yes, a bowl of ramen would be nice. Naruto's face lightened up as he led Samui through the village, and she nodded slightly. Naruto sheepishly stated, "I hope your parents won't get angry with you," as he guided her through the streets. Samui laughed, saying, "It's even cooler when they get angry." Naruto glanced at her before they resumed their stroll. They began conversing about everyday topics as they strolled, such as the academy and any training they may have received there. At some point, Naruto inquired whether she had begun the academy. "Not yet. My uncool parents wanted me to wait until my uncool brother is of age to enter so we could enter together, and I could be more prepared according to them." Samui replied with a huff at the end. Since it appeared that she was irritated simply by bringing up her brother, Naruto didn't bother to ask about him. "When will you enter then?" Though she was a year older than him, Yugito had previously promised him that she would wait until he started the academy, so it wasn't really a big deal. Besides, she still needed to train on her biju. Samui replied, "After 2 years, it is a bonus that I will enter with Yugito," then cast a cunning glance out of the corner of her eye. "It seems we will be in the same year, we will be unstoppable," Naruto said with a wide grin. Samui chuckled slightly at his antics. Soon, they reached the ramen shop, and the man who served smiled brightly upon seeing his favorite blonde. "Naruto, it's lovely to see you again." Rojin grinned and said, "Hi, old man, it's nice to see you as well. Where is Hina-chan?" Naruto asked as he looked around, but there was no sign of her anywhere. "I gave her the day off because she's not feeling well today," the man answered. "Ah, that's too bad. Well, tell her that I miss her and I hope she gets well soon," Naruto said with his usual bright smile. "All right, my boy," the ramen chef answered. "I'm sure it will make her feel much better, knowing that you care about her." Finally, Rojin noticed the blonde girl with short hair standing next to his favorite customer. He decided to approach her and ask, "And who is this adorable little friend of yours, Naruto?" He asked with curiosity, a slightly teasing tone in his voice. "She is Samui. She belongs to the Shiryoku clan. I bumped into her while walking on the street before," Naruto introduced. "He literally didn't see where he was going and he accidentally knocked me down on my ass," Samui mentioned with a mischievous smile. "It's not a big deal, you know." Naruto tried to justify his actions. "You have no idea how to treat a woman," Samui responded with a smirk. "Oh really, it was complete accident." Naruto defended himself even more, his face turning slightly red. "Face it, you were probably dreaming with your eyes open." Samui continued teasing. She didn't care that he dumped into her while walking, but she found his reaction hilarious as she sat down on the stool. "Everyone sometimes dreams with their eyes open. Now, Naruto, that's not how you talk to your girlfriend," the chef interrupted with a proud smirk. Naruto turned bright red from embarrassment, while Samui turned slightly pink, but she could control her emotions much better than Mr. Sunshine. "She's not my girlfriend," Naruto shouted, even more embarrassed, his face still red. "Obviously not. Why would I ever want to be in a relationship with a blockhead like you?" Samui teased as she placed her arms along the bar, using her right palm to rest her face lazily while staring at Naruto, who glared at her half-heartedly. "Don't worry, I wouldn't want to be in a relationship with you either, and I like girls who can handle themselves," Naruto remarked, trying to salvage any ego he had left, but his words made Samui smirk deviously. "Oh, really? So you like a woman that can kick your ass? Don't worry, once we are done here, we can have a little fight together, and you don't have to hold back one bit," Samui said coyly before winking at Naruto, who blushed, but he didn't want to be seen as weak. He would fight, even though so far he had never really fought with a girl, and not that he thought about it. Samui was 3 years older than him, she was most likely stronger than him, but he wasn't about to back down, he would fight to the end. "I won't hold back. I never do," Naruto promised as he finally turned to face the chef, looking at them with a wide smile. You are probably the youngest couple that I have ever served, for this reason, it will be 25% off. The chef said with a teasing smile, especially looking at Naruto, who glared at him like he wanted to murder him. He wishes. Samui said low enough for Naruto to hear, who stared at her. Maybe if you beat me, we can have a date. She offered with an alluring smile. The male blonde had to admit that Samui was beautiful, but he didn't want to date girls just because of their outside beauty. No thanks. If we ever date, then I would like to get to know you first. Naruto said sincerely, taking Samui by surprise. This was perhaps the very first time she was caught off guard, and she never usually did as he sat on the stool beside her. The chef took their orders, and once he did, he disappeared into the kitchen, leaving the two blondes alone. So, how did you meet Yugito? Samui asked casually, starting the conversation first. My uncle B. He holds the 8 tails. Naruto went on and explained how he happened to know Yugito, including the little fight at the park. Samui listened to his every word like a hawk. She wanted to know if he was really a friend or just someone who wanted to mess with Yugito, but as she heard more words, Naruto sounded less likely the type of plotting and scheme. If anything, she found him a bit too honest, especially when he mentioned that his uncle was the 8 tails and had full control over it. That wasn't the kind of information that one should say out of the blue. She hoped that it was because she too was a member of Kumo, and is not something he would blurt out to anybody. What about you, Samui? Naruto asked curiously. The embarrassment he had felt wavered the more he talked, and now he had no problem talking to her. Not really much to say, unfortunately. My uncool parents love my little brother a bit too much, so their genius idea is to forbid me from entering the academy for 3 years just so we both enter at the same time. Samui explained with a hint of irritation that she was trying to suppress. She knew how important it was to hold back feelings. Oh, why, though? I doubt my Gigi will place both of you on the same team after you both graduate, and even if he does, you will be on the same team until you are still Genins. Once you become Chunins, the teams are separated. Naruto reminded her with a slight confusion as he grabbed his chopsticks and started eating ramen. It was his favorite dish, and he was the only one in the family who loved ramen as much as he did. I know, but talking to my uncool parents is like talking to a brick wall, and my brother is the kind of person that makes you want to punch him in the face the moment he opens his mouth. Samui answered with a huff as her hands opened and closed as if she wanted to punch someone right at this moment. Naruto wasn't sure how to feel about her opinion of her brother, but he knew it wasn't his role to teach her how to act with her family. As Samui started eating her bowl of ramen, Naruto stopped in his tracks and watched her closely. She noticed the way he was staring at her but didn't mind as much as she swallowed the noodles, and once she did. Do you like it? Naruto asked almost anxiously, looking at her with puppy eyes. It's delicious, Samui said right away with a genuine smile. Before giving him a wink, he turned red, but his smile grew, and he was happy to hear someone else who liked ramen. Their one bowl of ramen quickly turned into 10 bowls of ramen. They kept talking more and more with one another. They found they liked walking in parks and enjoyed the quiet moments. They both loved blue flowers. It was delicious. Samui and Naruto praised the chef once they ate their 15th bowl. Samui licked her lips, enjoying the taste left in her mouth, before turning to face her new blonde friend. So, how about that fight? Samui asked eagerly. Oh, well, since you are in the mood to ounce someone, we can actually fight. I don't mind it even if I lose. Naruto offered with a broad smile. Such a gentleman. Lead the way, Naruto. Samui accepted with a teasing smile. As she cracked her fingers, she moved away a strand of hair blocking her face, placing it right behind her ear. But she quickly noticed that Naruto looked at her, a little awestruck. What? Nothing. I just think you look much better like this. Samui turned a little pink from his words. She usually ignored everyone who complimented her, but she would lie if she said that this compliment felt the same as the others. It felt better, but she quickly regained her composure. Oh, keep talking like that, and we might have that date. Samui spoke with a tone that sent shivers down Naruto's spine. He had never heard a girl talk like that, and he wouldn't mind it if she spoke more often like that. Thank you, my beautiful lady. Samui smiled cutely at his compliment. They paid what they owed to the chef, who told Naruto that he would have a 50% discount when he eventually had his date. This time, Naruto wasn't as embarrassed as the first time. Soon, they reached one of Kumo's many training fields inside its territory. Naruto and Samui stood on the far side of each end, looking at one another with clear determination. Samui's hand darted to her waist, pulling out a kunai with a practiced fluidity. With a flick of her wrist, she sent the blade soaring high into the air, the glint of the metal catching the sunlight as it spun. As the weapon descended towards the ground, and finally stabbed the ground, Naruto's fierce determination propelled him forward, his fist aimed straight at Samui's face. But with graceful agility, she evaded his attack, her movements as fluid as a dancer's. Not a single mark marred her smooth face. How? I used lightning chakra on my feet. Naruto thought, shocked, as he quickly followed his punch with many others, trying to get a hit, but Samui was easily dodging all of them. It was almost like a dance for her. Naruto's determination burned fiercely as he gritted his teeth and reached for a kunai from his trusty pouch. With a fierce battle cry, he launched himself at his opponent, his weapon poised to strike. But this time his kunai clashed with hers. Their eyes locked in a fierce and intense gaze, both fighters refusing to back down. However, just when Naruto thought he had the upper hand, Samui's lips curled into a victorious smirk. Without a moment's hesitation, she launched a barrage of attacks, her kunai slicing through the air with deadly precision. Despite his best efforts, Naruto struggled to keep up with her lightning-fast movements. And as he stumbled back in pain, his jacket torn open from her brutal strike. Is that all you can do? Samui asked, almost mocking him, but Naruto wasn't about to give up so easily. He would not take the upper hand by relying on Kyuubi. You wish. Naruto smirked when he grabbed 5 more kunais from his pouch. Samui was caught off guard when Naruto used his mouth, his hands, and his armpits to grab the kunais. He then started swinging wildly at Samui, who quickly started defending herself, trying to keep up with the many new kunais, trying to block each upcoming attack. Take this! Naruto shouted as he suddenly slammed the ground hard, causing a wind blast to hit Samui, catching her off guard. Naruto rushed her, whirling around like a big ball full of spikes. Samui wasn't able to keep up, and one of the blades cut her arm. But much to his shock, Samui's entire body suddenly turned into blood. What the hell? Naruto shouted in confusion as he stopped whirling and looked down at the pile of blood on the floor. You are stronger than I expected. Naruto quickly turned around to see Samui standing behind him. The cut on her arm was gone. Was that a clone? Naruto asked, bewildered and a little amazed. He had never seen something like that, but a part of him was telling him that this was no ordinary clone. You can call it that, Samui said casually. Marks started forming around her body, from head to toe, thin red lines that spread from her heart to the rest of her body, like a tree twisting its branches far and wide. Wait, her veins are turning red and visible through the skin. Naruto quickly concluded, wondering what Samui was doing right now. He wondered if this was a bloodline he had never heard of before. Congratulations, Naruto. Not even my brother can make me use my bloodline, she said, and for the first time, she sounded impressed by him. Before Naruto could even ask what her bloodline was or what it could do, she disappeared, and he felt a sharp blade against his throat from behind. Game over. Samui's voice came from behind, but unlike before, she sounded void of any emotions. Naruto slowly raised his hands in surrender, his kunai slipping from his fingers and armpits, clattering on the floor one by one. Once the last one fell. As Samui moved the sharp blade away from his throat, he couldn't help but feel a rush of relief wash over him. But then, something unexpected happened. He felt her warm and soft lips press gently against his cheek, sending shivers down his spine. His face instantly flushed bright red as she walked past him, leaving him in a state of confusion and desire. You fight very well, Naruto. Perhaps we can fight again one day. I see that Yugito has a real friend by her side. Samui complimented, now sounding much more relaxed. As she turned to face him, she giggled when she saw that Naruto was still bright red from her kiss. Why, you are an excellent fighter, Samui. I wouldn't mind fighting with you again, Naruto said with a slight stutter, still remembering the way her lips had felt against his cheek. B used to tease him about girls, but he always said that he didn't care about girls. Now, he found himself not minding if she kissed him again. Samui giggled, and Naruto loved the sound she made. I have to go now, see you around, Naruto, Samui said teasingly before winking at him as she walked away. Now that he was finally alone, Naruto could finally try to regain his composure. B will never leave me alone, he thought, groaning as his hand ran through his hair in frustration. He knew his uncle should never, ever learn about this incident. Naruto has finally completed his training with the third Raikage. The old man has already set the foundation for the young Yatsuki's skills as a shinobi. Knowing that his Jiji cannot be his sensei forever, Naruto will have to resume his training on his own until he is put on a genin team. Enda had already evaluated Naruto's skills and intelligence based on his short training regime and deemed him to be at high genin level. After perfecting his chakra control, B taught Naruto several ninjutsu based on his elemental affinities. 3 for each, to be exact. For his water style, he had learned 1. Liquid bullet, C rank, offensive equals the user creates water in their body using chakra. The user then spits the water from their mouth as orb-shaped projectiles, whose destructive potential are determined by how much chakra is placed in them. The orbs travel quickly toward the target, dealing extensive damage upon impact. 2. Raging waves, C rank, offensive equals the user spews water from their mouth in a waterfall-like fashion to wash away the target. One can freely control the power of this technique by the amount of chakra needed and then released. While considered to be a basic water release technique, it has many variations. 3. Water wall, B rank, defensive equals the user spits a stream of water from their mouth at the ground, which circles around them and rises upward to create a wall. If the user is standing on a body of water, they can instead create the wall from the surroundings. The water wall defends anyone within its perimeter from attack, with the wall's strength being determined by how much of the user's chakra is put into it. Users control how long the wall lasts as well as how much water it's made with. Because the water is clear, the wall doesn't obstruct the user's vision, allowing them to make their next move uninhibited. The wall's initial formation, if timed correctly, can be used to fend off opponents, flinging them away as the wall rises. Naruto's taijutsu and chakra control have also greatly improved over the months. His friendship with Kyuubi had improved, but the giant fox had yet to tell him his real name. It seems that Naruto had also inherited his birth mother's natural talent for sensory. And when Naruto explained how he used it for the first time, I remembered how Kushina had used it once against them. Kushina was an adept sensor. By touching the ground with just her finger, she could accurately detect the presence and location of targets in the surrounding area. She could also sense a person's chakra from countries away, identifying a target's ancestry from their chakra signature, and even pinpoint a target's exact location while blinded. Naruto may not be at the same level as his legendary mother yet, but his sensory abilities are still strong enough to alert him when his friends are in danger. Speaking of his friends, in the last 2 years, his friendship with Samui and Yugito has improved quite a lot. The second time they met, Samui had brought Yugito as well. After that day, every time they would hang out, it would be the 3 of them having fun together. This of course earned teasing from both B and his father, who kept insisting that he had 2 girlfriends despite being only 6 years old. The blonde would blush furiously before shouting at them that it wasn't like that. Just as they planned, they would enter the academy together, despite Yugito being 7 years old and Samui being 9 years old. Naruto would even help train Samui with her taijutsu and chakra studies. Samui and Yugito are truly inspired every time Naruto talks about achieving true peace, and realize that they want that for her village and the world too. Many of Samui's clan members died in the last war, including friends and cousins of her parents. She, too, wanted to make sure it never happened again. Kumo streets, en route to the Shinobi Academy. It is finally time for Naruto to enter the academy. His entry is a couple of months late due to his difficult long training with the lightning. Samui and Yugito had to start their first academy days without him, despite her protest. He knew they would be extremely mad, but he assured them that he would join their class soon and they will be together again like always. Naruto is currently walking the streets of Kumo all the way to the academy. But to his surprise, he wasn't alone. Two of his precious people decided to accompany him. You know you guys don't have to come with me, right? Naruto asks the duo. And miss my brother's first day in the academy. Never. B yelled passionately. You sound like you're my mum, B, Naruto says, slightly annoyed by his big brother. But in his heart, he was happy that he cared so much just to accompany him on his first day. I might as well be, you know. And you, my little blonde, are our cute little Gaki. And as good parents, we wanted to make sure your trip to the academy is safe and sound. Isn't that right, Father? B says teasingly at his brother, who grunts in frustration. B, you're an absolute moron. A says with a tired sigh. So Naruto, you excited about your first day in the academy? A asks. Yup. Super excited, Father. But, I'm a little nervous, though. What if I can't make any friends? What if they don't like me? Naruto asks with worry and doubt in his voice. Oh, come on, Gaki. You have been raised by Me, the most wonderful man in Kumo. I have taught you all I know how to talk with people. I bet you can make friends with anyone. B boasted with a confident smile, much to A's annoyance. Don't listen to his stupidity is probably contagious. But he's right, Naruto. You'll be fine. So don't worry about it, A says with a smile. Plus, he has Samui and Yugito to keep him company, B says with a smirk and a teasing voice. Shish shut up, B. Naruto says with an embarrassed blush. Ha ha ha. They grow up so fast, don't they, bro, B says with a satisfied smirk. Shinobi Academy entrance. The trio had finally arrived at the academy and were preparing to say their goodbyes before they departed. Alright, you be good now, Gaki. I don't want to hear you causing any mischief. You hear me, A says with a smile and a surprisingly strict tone to the little blonde. Just be yourself, Naruto, and everything will be fine. Also, Lord Third, asked me to tell you not to show too much of your skills. And by too much, I mean don't kill anyone in a spar, A says calmly. But my wing fist is meant for self-defense, Father. How can I kill anyone with it? Naruto asked, with a fake innocent tone to his father. Right, and your chain of jabs at your opponent's face won't cause any head traumas, B says with twice the sarcasm as the little blonde. Ha ha ha, fine, fine. I promise I won't go overboard. Naruto says with an embarrassed laugh as he rubs the back of his head. Feeling very grateful for their concern and kindness for his well-being, Naruto wraps both B in a tight hug. They, in turn, return the hug to him. Thanks for coming with me, Uncle, Father. I promise I will make you both proud. See you later, Naruto says with a bright smile. He then releases them from his embrace and waves them goodbye as he continues to walk towards the entrance. The young Yatsuki then enters the academy doors, leaving his uncle and father by themselves with proud looks on their faces. B couldn't be more happier for the little blonde, as he is about to start his journey as a Kumo shinobi. See, he said my name first. I'm clearly his favorite, B says with a proud smirk as he punches the air. Sure, whatever, A says with a tired sigh. He knew B just wanted to challenge him like he always does. Academy, C's classroom. The class is about to begin, and all the students are preparing to take their seats. Some of the students were now just arriving in the classroom and began to chat with each other. The students turned their attention to their Chunin instructor, C. Kadio. C is a young man with dark eyes and short blonde hair, which he wears parted in the front. He wears the standard attire of the Kumo nin, a sleeveless, black shirt with a one strap over one shoulder white flak jacket, black forehead protector, characteristic black, elbow-length arm guards, and the red and white Kumogakure shin guards along with pair of sandals. He then begins to address his students. Okay, class, please be on your best behavior. We have a new student joining us today, C says with a smile. But his smile immediately faded as his students continued to voice out loud their questions and opinions. Who is it, C-sensei? Asked by one boy. Ha, I hope it's a pretty girl. If it is, I bet I can make her my girlfriend before the end of the day. Says the overconfident looking boy. Samui, Yugito, and two other students were calm. Unlike the rest, they knew who was arriving today. Omoi was quite looking forward to this one. Samui and Yugito couldn't wait to see how powerful Naruto had become. Naruto had told Yugito that he would enter the academy by this week, but he didn't specify which day. He thought it would be fun to annoy her a little as she continued to wait impatiently for him, not knowing exactly when he would come. C is becoming annoyed, so he uses his special jutsu to silence his loud, talkative students. Silence. C yelled out with a very cartoonish big head, causing all the students to gulp and stop talking immediately. Cough cough anyway, please be nice to him. You can come in now. C calls out to the person on the other side of the class door. The door opens, and who should walk in but the whiskered-faced sunny blonde boy. Everyone was now staring at him with wonder, waiting for him to speak up. Now, please introduce yourself. C politely asks. Hello, my name is Naruto Yatsuki. It's nice to meet you all. I hope we can get along, says the blonde boy with a respectful bow at the end while flashing one of his infamous bright smiles as he looks out to his new peers with his beautiful blue-colored eyes. The room fell silent for a moment, especially C. I see, so this is why A-sama wanted me to teach this one generation before going back to Anbu. C thought, now understanding why his friend wanted him in the academy for now. Many of his female classmates, however, have one thing in common in their minds. Yatsuki. Wow, he must be a clan heir or something. Forget clan heir. Yatsukas are considered royalty. He must be a prince. Holy crap, he's so handsome. Those whisker marks are so cute. The boys, however, are not too keen on his arrival though. Well, only one in particular. Damn, he's stealing all the attention. What's so special about him anyway? Thought the envious Atsui as he glared daggers at the blonde Yatsuki. He doesn't look so troublesome, thought the still drowsy Omoi. Not even a minute here, and he's already stealing everyone's hearts. Samui thought, getting annoyed by the looks the other girls were giving Naruto. She wasn't bothered if Yugito did it, but all those whores needed to keep their hands down. Okay, Naruto, please take any available seat you want, says C to the young blonde. Naruto was then greeted by the loud multiple screeches of girls asking desperately for him to sit with them. Naruto saw Samui and Yugito, who were giving him a very pointed look, but he returned it with a smile. Samui was already sitting between two other girls, Yugito and Karui. The latter was analyzing the blonde carefully. So sitting with his favorite blondes is not an option at the moment. He then saw an empty seat right next to a black-haired boy who looked bored more than anything. He then decided to sit next to him, which caused many of the girls to disappointedly stop their screeching, and Samui to roll her eyes at them since Naruto wasn't sitting next to another girl. As C continues his lecture, Naruto decides to pay attention, despite Chunon's boringness. However, he did not fail to realize that many pairs of female eyes were still lurking on him. Naruto turned his head back and saw the many girls behind him, blushing and giggling at the sight of him. Samui wondered if she should use her bloodline on all of them to teach them some manners. Yugito was thinking of using her blue flames on them. Lunchtime, outside the academy building. Naruto was doing his best to avoid all the girls that were hounding him. They really wanted to have lunch with him and learn more about the mysterious, handsome Yatsuki. Naruto is very flattered and grateful for all the attention he is receiving from his female peers. But he didn't want this sort of attention, especially when he noticed the cold glare they were receiving from Samui and Yugito. They looked ready to scorch them. He wanted to have lunch with his friends so badly, but he had to exit the classroom quickly. Otherwise, he will be caught in the stampede of his new, fangirl club. He then saw the same dark-haired boy sitting in a shade under a tree. He was enjoying his homemade lunch made by his mother. Naruto then decides to approach him, to introduce himself to his seatmate officially. Hey, can I join you? Naruto asks with hope in his voice. Really? No offense, but why would you want to join me? Omoi asked out of curiosity. Given his new classmate's growing popularity, he thought the blonde would rather sit elsewhere. Well, this spot does seem like a good place to enjoy your lunch and just relax, don't you think? Naruto asks with a smile. MMPH, Can't disagree on that. Have a seat. Omoi smiled and invited the blue-eyed blonde to sit down with them. Thanks. Naruto waited for him to give his name. Oh, I'm sorry. I'm Omoi. He introduced himself with a gesture of his hand. Omoi is a young, dark-skinned Kumo nin with short, spiky, white hair and dark eyes accentuated with eyelashes curving upwards from the corners. He wears a dark outfit consisting of an overlong shirt with a hood, with red bandage hand guards, Kumogakure shin guards, along with a Kumogakure flak jacket. I'm Naruto, Naruto Yatsuki, Naruto said with a smile. Yeah, I know, almost every girl in class can't stop whispering and yelling out your name. It's very annoying, Omoi says with a tired sigh. Ha ha ha, sorry about that. Naruto rubbed the back of his head sheepishly. So, why are you here alone? Naruto asked, sitting beside him. Well, sometimes I like to be alone, but usually, I'm with Karui. Karui? Naruto asked, not recognizing the name, as he took a bite out of his sandwich. You haven't met her. Good, the longer you stay without the knowledge she exists in our world, the better. He finished with an overdramatic voice as if he was talking about the end of the world or something, and Naruto could have sworn his face had gone pale. You okay, man? Naruto asked, waving his hand in front of his face, which seemed to break Omoi out of his dark thoughts. I'm fine, he reluctantly said, taking deep breaths. Naruto seriously doubted that. Eventually, they started talking about more regular things that didn't involve the end of the world. Naruto learned that Omoi enjoyed using his sword to fight rather than jutsu or any other way of fighting. I use kenjutsu too. My father told me that I needed to learn it in order to become stronger. Naruto said this earned Omoi's interest, and they kept talking about different sword fighting styles. That was until their friends were brought up. So, you know Samui and Yugito? Omoi asked, drinking water from a glass bottle. Yes, we have been friends for 2 years now, Naruto replied, wiping his lips with a napkin after he finished the sandwich. Well, I have known them for 2 months now, except Karui. I have known her for 3 years. Omoi said before looking over the blonde's shoulder. Oh, well, perhaps all 5 of us can become friends, Naruto suggested since he enjoyed the time he spent with Omoi until he noticed that he was looking over his shoulder. Before Naruto could look behind him to see what Omoi was looking at, he got his answer in the form of a redhead girl accompanied by Samui and Yugito. Hello there, Naruto, this is Karui, don't let her fool you. She's the devil, Omoi warned with an overdramatic tone as Samui and Yugito sat to Naruto's right and left. Whatever, Omoi, she said, annoyed, moving a strand of her hair behind her ear before turning to Naruto, and extending her hand. Name's Karui, strongest future kenjutsu user. She introduced herself, and Naruto shook her hand, smiling at how she introduced herself. Thanks. I'm Naruto Yatsuki, he said as she sat down in a crossed-legged position. Don't worry, I won't forget that until the day I die, Karui said with annoyance, pointing at the many fangirls looking at them, more at Naruto, who rubbed his head in embarrassment. Sorry about that. No worries, if we are lucky, they will fall from the academy soon, Karui said dismissively before she started eating her lunch. Knowing fangirls like them were the first to drop, the academy in Kumo was nothing to take lightly, and even Omoi had made his calculation, saying at least 70% of the students won't even pass the first year. The 5 ninja-to-be kids continue to converse among each other and enjoy every second of their lunchtime. Both Karui and Omoi are getting to know Naruto a little better, and Samui is pleased that her blonde friends are making new friends. The blonde Yatsuki is really enjoying his time with his new friend and the redhead, crazy-looking Karui. They were genuinely good people, and he just knew that they could be his new potential best friends. And he was right. It was the perfect first day for the young Yatsuki. But will tomorrow be the same? Or will trouble eventually find its way to him? Life in the Shinobi Academy has been very interesting for the blonde Yatsuki. Naruto was doing well in his studies thanks to no small help from his friends, his father, and even a few study sessions with his sensei, the third Raikage. Naruto knew that having more people in his life made him feel more complete and cemented his resolve to become the best Kage ever. You can't be the Raikage when you don't know the people you are leading or protecting. He was already close with Omoi, Yugito, and Samui, but that doesn't mean he shouldn't try to have more friends. So far, almost everyone else was pretty cool with him. Karui was slowly joining their little group of friends. But there is one boy in his class, who, for some reason, despises Naruto with a burning passion, Atsui Shiryoku. Samui's little brother. According to her, Clan Yatsuki and her clan were rivals a long time ago, but when a Yatsuki became the first Raikage, that rivalry pretty much ended. However, it seemed Atsui still wanted to be his rival for some reason, even if their power level was way too different. The short-tempered and impulsive boy would occasionally try to pick fights with the blonde Yatsuki to prove who's top student. Atsui has been very envious of Naruto's natural charisma and the fact that all the pretty girls in their class are practically in love with him. Naruto just can't understand why Atsui is such a prick, a preferred word that Yugito would describe him perfectly. Despite that, the blonde Yatsuki tried to be friends with him, but the impulsive Shiryoku spat on his offer of friendship. Literally. Atsui had an ego the size of the Kumo village, and he would rather make a rival out of Naruto than be his friend. But what makes him even angrier at the blonde is that his sister is one of Naruto's best friends. One time he had tried to convince Samui that she should no longer hang out with Naruto because she was insulting their clan's history or something like that. The result of that was Samui beating the crap out of him using her hand-to-hand combat. From all the people in the school, Samui's specialty was her hand-to-hand combat and her clan's rare Kekkei Genkai. One other thing Naruto had learned during the 4 years in the academy was that C-sensei wasn't really fond of Konoha. The blonde didn't know why since no one in the academy knew. He had asked his father since they were old friends, but his father simply told him that it wasn't his place to tell him. Academy. Training grounds. Once they started their activity for the day, Naruto learned it wouldn't be an easy one. As the sun began to rise, C stood at the base of the mountain, his eyes piercing through the morning mist as he addressed his students with a stern voice. He instructed them that in order to truly understand the limits of their strength, they would need to make the climb to the peak of the mountain, relying solely on their feet and bare hands, leaving behind any safety tools or equipment. The students exchanged nervous glances, their hearts racing with anticipation and fear, as they gazed up at the daunting 200-meter-tall mountain that towered above them. And they were forbidden from using chakra in any way. As they stood at the base of the towering mountain, their eyes scanning the steep and treacherous terrain that lay ahead, a sense of excitement and fear coursed through their veins. What would happen if we fell while trying to climb? One asked, his gaze fixed on their guide, C, who stood before them with a sly grin on his face. C's response was swift and unapologetic, his lips curling into a devious smirk. You die, obviously, he said, his words punctuated by a sharp laugh that echoed across the mountain range. The group fell silent, the weight of C's words settling heavily upon them as they prepared to embark on their perilous journey, and C-sensei seemed to enjoy the way the student's face went pale white with dread. Naruto wasn't that much bothered by the challenge. He was actually quite looking forward to it. Atsui's voice echoed throughout the campus as he shouted in disbelief, seriously, C must be out of his mind. His statement was met with a chorus of nodding heads from the nearby students who were equally skeptical. The idea of climbing a mountain seemed nothing short of insane to them. The thought of conquering such a daunting task was intimidating, to say the least. The towering peak loomed in the distance, taunting them with its jagged edges and sheer cliffs. Samui's voice held a tinge of irritation as she stood beside Naruto, her arms crossed in a display of impatience. Looking at it as not going to do anything, she admonished, her tone clipped and firm. She couldn't understand why Atsui was wasting time complaining instead of taking action. The climb ahead of them was steep and treacherous, but she knew they could do it if they worked together. So stop whining like a bitch, Samui continued, her frustration apparent, and let's start climbing. Yugito nodded. She was actually excited to complete this one due to her agility from Matabi. Climbing anything was a piece of cake for Yugito. Start, C shouted, as everyone started running towards the hill. They weren't obligated to start at the same time. They simply needed to reach the top within 4 hours. Naruto stood still, his eyes fixed on the towering mountain in front of him, as he observed the students around him with a mix of curiosity. Some of them, fueled by a seemingly endless supply of energy, were already halfway up the steep incline, their movements agile and confident. In contrast, others lagged behind, their faces etched with determination and sweat as they struggled to keep up with their more athletic peers. The wind whistled through his hair as he fixed his gaze on the distant horizon. Omoi was counting until someone fell. It didn't take long, and one of them slipped before falling to the ground below. Suddenly, a loud thud echoed through the air. He saw one of his team members had lost their footing and was tumbling down the rocky slope. With every step, the wind howled louder, and the ground seemed to shake beneath their feet. Suddenly, one of them lost their footing and tumbled down the rocky slope, their terrified screams echoing through the valley below. Soon more fell below, their bodies twisting and turning in the air before crashing against the unforgiving stone below. The sound of their screams pierced the silence, ringing in the ears of all who heard it. As they lay there, broken and battered, their pained cries could be heard for miles around. C told his men to send all those that fell to the infirmary. Samui memoried the safe route before rushing to climb, followed closely by Yugito. Those that were foolish enough to climb first did the job of showing where not to climb and where was the safer route for Samui, Yugito, and Naruto. Naruto, how about a match to the top? Asked Omoi, his voice filled with enthusiasm as he stretched his arms, feeling the adrenaline rush through his veins. Naruto couldn't help but feel the excitement building up inside him, his eyes sparkling with determination. He noticed Yugito, the skilled and agile kunoichi, already perched atop the peak, her victory grin shining brightly in the sunlight, with Karui being the second, Ku being the third, and Samui being the fourth. Sure, but if I win, you owe me 20 bowls of ramen. Naruto accepted the challenge before stretching his limbs, arms, and legs. The other students started murmuring amongst each other. Okay. The sun had already risen, casting a bright orange hue upon the mountain's peak as Naruto and Omoi approached the base of the towering natural wonder. The air was crisp and cool, with a hint of excitement and anticipation as they both took a deep breath in unison, their eyes fixed upon the daunting ascent that lay ahead of them. With each step they took, they could feel their muscles tensing and their hearts racing, but they remained determined, their eyes locked on the summit. The rocky terrain challenged their skills and stamina, but they continued to push forward. As they climbed higher, the scenery around them changed, with the trees below appearing smaller and the clouds above closer. As Omoi and Naruto raced up the steep hill, their labored breathing was the only sound that filled the air. Omoi's extensive training in the art of climbing had given him an edge over Naruto, who was struggling to keep up with him. With each step, Omoi's legs propelled him forward with ease and grace. As they neared the top, Omoi's sharp eyes scanned the rocky terrain ahead, quickly identifying the safest and most stable rocks to take his weight. His hands moved with the precision of a surgeon, gripping and releasing each rock with ease. Come on, Omoi. Show Naruto who's boss. The blonde stands no chance. As Omoi persevered up the towering rock wall, his muscles strained with exertion, his heart racing with adrenaline, and his spirit filled with determination. The other students, who were watching from below, erupted in a chorus of cheers and applause, their voices echoing off the jagged cliffs. Omoi felt a sense of pride swell within him as he glanced down at his classmates, their faces beaming with admiration and respect. As he continued his ascent, his focus remained fixed on the task at hand, his fingers gripping tightly to the rough surface of the rocks, his feet seeking out the smallest of crevices for purchase. But then, as he reached a particularly difficult section of the climb, he chanced a glance downward and was surprised to see Naruto only a meter below him. In a desperate attempt to speed things up, Omoi lunged forward and grabbed hold of a jagged rock, his knuckles turning white with the strain. For a few seconds, he hung there, his entire weight resting on the unstable rock, hoping to propel himself higher. But as he tried to pull himself up, the rock suddenly gave way. The sound of the rock slipping was the only sound heard as it slipped from the hill, along with Omoi, who started moving his hands flailing desperately in search of something to hold onto. Despite his valiant efforts, he was unable to grasp anything but empty air. Omoi! Karui screamed from above, ready to jump and catch Omoi, when Naruto grabbed Omoi's hand. Naruto gritted his teeth in frustration as he held onto Omoi. Damn it, Omoi, this is a good moment to say, "I told you so," Naruto exclaimed, his voice filled with a mix of anger and amusement. Despite the perilous situation, Naruto couldn't help but feel a sense of satisfaction from proving Omoi wrong. With his impressive strength and agility honed through rigorous training, Naruto was able to effortlessly hold onto Omoi with just one arm while his friend desperately clung to him in a panic. The wind howled around them, whipping their hair and clothes into a frenzy as they hung suspended high above the ground. "Don't drop me," Omoi begged. His grip on Naruto's arm tightened as the blonde ninja swung him upwards, the wind rushing past Omoi's face. Omoi felt his stomach drop as he soared higher and higher. Suddenly, Naruto released him, and Omoi found himself hurtling through the air, his arms flailing wildly. With lightning-fast reflexes, Omoi managed to grab hold of a nearby rock, his fingers digging into the rough surface as he fought to regain his footing. Taking deep breaths in and out, he finally calmed down, his heart almost bursting from his chest. "Come on, let's continue," Naruto prompted as everyone cheered for Naruto to save Omoi's ass. When they finally arrived at the top, Karui turned to Omoi and extended her hand. Omoi accepted her hand with a grin. As they caught their breath and gazed out at the stunning view before them, Samui and Yugito followed suit, also offering their hands to Naruto. As Naruto turned around, he was filled with a sense of gratitude toward Samui and Yugito. Just as he was about to thank them, a sudden and unexpected movement from behind caught him off guard. It was Omoi who wrapped his arms around Naruto in a tight embrace. "Thanks, man. You saved my life," Omoi said, his voice filled with emotion as he spoke. Overwhelmed by the depth of Omoi's gratitude, Naruto smiled and slapped his friend lightly on the back. "Don't worry, Omoi. We are friends. But remember, you owe me ramen," Naruto said with a broad smile. Omoi laughed at that. Samui found herself focusing only on her favorite blonde. Her eyes looked at Naruto in a new light. She always admired him, his strength was extraordinary and quite attractive, but now, she knew she liked him a lot. The realization filled her with a sense of warmth and contentment, and she knew she had finally found the one person who could make her heart sing. Later, as C stands in front of his students, a sense of excitement and anticipation fills the room as they eagerly await the commencement of their second activity. With a confident stance and a clear voice, C begins to address the group, his eyes scanning the room, taking in the individual personalities and unique characteristics of each student. "All right, everyone, now we will begin our annual shinobi sparring sessions. Remember, this is a sacred shinobi tradition of Kumo, not an opportunity for a street fight. I must also remind you that you will start by forming the seal of confrontation with your opponent before the spar begins. Once your spars are over, I expect you to show the proper respect to your winning or losing opponent by forming the seal of reconciliation with each other." C-sensei had briefly explained to his students of the traditional combat training method that has been passed down for generations in Kumo as a training method for academy students. "I have already prepared the list of your sparring partners through random selection. Remember only to use taijutsu. This is a spar, not a battle," C-sensei said with a firm and authoritative voice. Each student now has their own thoughts going through their mind. "Yes, this will be a great chance for me to show whose top student is. If I can beat and humiliate the Yotsuki, no one will ever disrespect me again. And I will be the one surrounded by girls instead of that punk," thought by the ever so vile and envious Shiryoku boy. I know Samui is the best in taijutsu in our class, so I definitely want to fight her. But I am actually hoping I can spar with Naruto too," Yugito thought, knowing her fellow blonde and best friend's talent. "I really hope I get to fight Naruto. So far, he's the only one who can pose me any challenge," Samui thought, her sharp eyes looking at Naruto, who had a broad smile that she hated to admit she liked. Naruto is often very sweet with Samui and Yugito, but when it comes to their training, her kind, loving friend immediately becomes their hard-ass sensei. "This is going to end in a disaster," was the only obvious thing Omoi could think of. "I hope I can get to fight either Yugito or Omoi," thought Karui, knowing she had no chance against someone like Samui and Naruto. "This could be fun," was all Naruto could think of. 4 matches later. Match 6 Yugito vs Random Student equals Yugito wins. Match 7 Omoi vs Random Student equals Omoi wins. Match 7 Samui vs Random Student equals Samui wins. And when his name finally came out, along with his opponents, he screamed and howled like a mad dog. He finally gets to fight his most hated rival, Naruto Yatsuki. Naruto is cursing his luck. It's not that he is scared or anything. It's just that now he has to humor the prick, who is constantly screaming his ear off with insults and disrespect. He knows he promised his Gigi he wouldn't go overboard, but he will be damned if he lets an opportunity to beat some sense into the disrespectful boy's thick skull slip away. The 10th and final match. As the two young shinobi, Naruto and Atsui, stood facing each other in the sparring ring, the tension between them was palpable. Naruto, with his arms crossed and a bored expression etched on his face, seemed unimpressed by the situation, while Atsui, on the other hand, was bouncing on the balls of his feet, his teeth gritted in anticipation of finally putting the Yatsuki boy in his place. Despite the stark contrast in their demeanors, both Naruto and Atsui were determined to come out on top and prove their worth as skilled fighters. Naruto's eyes flickered with a hint of annoyance as he prepared himself for the fight, while Atsui's grin widened, eager to take on the challenge that lay ahead of him. Best you quit now, loser. There's no way you will win against me. Atsui boasted, his voice filled with arrogance, as he towered over Naruto, who remained quiet and composed, staring into the vast emptiness of space, his mind focused on his own thoughts and inner strength, unperturbed by Atsui's taunts and insults. Atsui, who was known for his overconfidence and inflated ego, could not comprehend Naruto's calm demeanor and lack of response, which only fueled his arrogance and made him even more determined to crush Naruto in the upcoming combat. Atsui, with a proud smirk on his face, had just made a bold statement towards Naruto, who seemed to be indifferent to his challenge. Too scared to talk, huh? Well, don't worry, I won't hurt you if you just admit that I am better than you. Atsui remarked, his tone filled with overconfidence and self-assurance. Naruto, seemingly unimpressed, replied in a bored voice, huh? Did you say something? You punk. Have you been ignoring me this whole time? I'm going to beat you to a pulp. No one disrespects me and gets away with it. Atsui said, gritting his teeth in anger. Naruto-kun is so cool. You can do it, Naruto-kun. Kick his butt, Naruto-kun. Naruto's fangirls showed their loving support very loudly, causing Samui and Yugito to glare at them. Geez, for once, I actually agree with my friend's fangirls. I hope he beats that prick's ass. That was all Samui could think of at the moment. Atsui is now enraged more than ever. It's bad enough that his rival had been ignoring his taunts, but now all the pretty girls are cheering for only the blonde Yatsuki and telling him to beat Atsui up like he was nothing. The Shiryoku's pride has taken its last toll, and this match has now become more personal for him. This is the 10th and final spar between Naruto Yatsuki and Atsui Shiryoku. Will both fighters please present the seal of confrontation? C-sensei says as he stands between the two boys and raises his right arm up, indicating that he is about to give a signal to begin the match. Naruto and Atsui then raise their right hand in front of their chest and form the half seal on their fingers. Hajime. Begin. C-sensei yelled out and dropped his arm down, signaling the beginning of the fight. Naruto immediately took his defensive stance as Atsui charged head-on. His attacks were filled with blind rage and resentment towards the blonde Yatsuki. Atsui didn't even see it coming, as when he was a foot away from Naruto, and pulling his fist back for a hard punch, Naruto landed a swift roundhouse kick to Shiryoku's left cheek. The kick was strong, but it wasn't strong enough to knock Atsui off the ring, but it was enough to shock everyone else with the impressive display of quick reflexes and skill. Everyone except Samui, Yugito, and Omoi, as they already knew what Naruto was capable of. Hell, they were sure he had yet to show his true strength in front of them. Atsui pulled himself up after a minute of trying to digest what just happened. His blonde rival managed to land the first hit, and it was a strong one, too, as he could feel his cheek building up a bruise. Naruto didn't even look fazed by the kick as he calmly retook his taijutsu stance and waited for Atsui to make his move. Tell me something, Atsui. Why do you resent me so much? I haven't done anything to you, and yet you showed such animosity towards me. Naruto asks. You haven't done anything to me. You come here one day and steal all the spotlight for yourself. You think you're so cool because you're a Yatsuki. Is that it? Well, I'll show you. I'll show everyone that the Shiryoku is much better than some clan. Atsui yelled out with rage and disgust in his words. Naruto's eyes almost twitch at the level of arrogance and disrespect Atsui shows towards his grandfather and father's clan. He manages to calm himself down and looks straight into Atsui with his piercing blue eyes. This isn't a battle between clans, Atsui. This is a shinobi spar between two academy students. You showed great pride for your clan. I respect that, but disrespecting mine out of petty jealousy, you not only bring dishonor and shame to yourself but your clan as well. Naruto says in a calm and serious tone. How dare you? Atsui yelled out to the blonde Yatsuki. I dare because it's the truth. Pride helps build our identity, Atsui. But if you let it fill your ego, you will never become someone who deserves respect. So until you learn to respect others, don't expect me or anyone else to respect you. Plus, you're a prick. Naruto still kept his calm demeanor but couldn't help himself by adding the last sentence to put more fuel into the fire. Atsui's eyes were burning with rage as he let out a roar of fury that almost sounded like a roar. The Shiryoku charges once more at the Yatsuki. His attacks are filled with even more rage than before. Naruto decided to let the Shiryoku vent out his misplaced anger a little, so he decided not to land another swift kick to the arrogant boy's face that could have put the match to an early end. Instead, he flawlessly blocks every single attack with minimum effort and counters them with rapid swift jabs to Atsui's chest and ribs. C-sensei was astounded by the show of skill by the Jinchuriki. He didn't know Naruto could be so talented in taijutsu. He knew I-sensei was training his grandson, but he never thought Naruto had already reached so far. Atsui was getting tired and frustrated as he kept sending out blocked hits after blocked hit. He could feel his arms getting bruised from all the strong blocks. Naruto would then attack his body to rid him of more of his stamina and mobility. Atsui tried to kick Naruto on his left side, but it was a fatal mistake, as Naruto caught his leg and performed a takedown, landing the Shiryoku roughly on his back. Naruto then quickly bends down to one knee, right near Shiryoku's head. Wing fist art, chain of jabs, Naruto whispered under his breath before he unleashed a barrage of chakra-enhanced fast jabs on Atsui's face. Atsui couldn't do anything, as his face was being pummeled into the dirt. He lost consciousness after the 20th jab, causing Naruto to stop his assault and back away from him. C-sensei went to check on Atsui and could tell that the Shiryoku was unconscious, and declared Naruto the winner. Winner, Naruto Yatsuki. C-sensei said with a slightly proud tone that the Jinchuriki fought with honor. The girls were cheering his name out and congratulating him for his win. Yugito felt her cheeks heat up at the display of his power. She knew Naruto was strong, but seeing him effortlessly beat Atsui was quite fun. She looked at Samui and saw that the cold girl was looking at her little brother with a tiny hint of concern but anger too. The Jinchuriki of Two Tails Cat wondered whenever Samui was conflicted. Seeing her brother unconscious like that, Yugito knew Samui didn't really like him, but he was still family. Omoi was impressed. Now he wanted to test himself against Naruto even more. He knew he stood no chance, but he liked to push himself further. But Naruto didn't feel like a winner, as he somehow felt a little guilty because he knew where Atsui's jealousy was coming from. The Shiryoku just wanted to be acknowledged and prove to himself and others that he was worthy. He just didn't do it the right way. C-sensei then lifted Atsui's unconscious body and brought him to the academy's infirmary to get some medical treatment. He informed everyone to go back to the classroom and wait for him until he returned. Academy infirmary 5 hours later. Atsui finally opened his eyes and saw that he was lying on one of the infirmary beds. He recalled what happened during his one-sided fight with Naruto and felt great shame in his heart. It was a humiliating defeat in front of his peers. He felt angrier towards himself than his blonde opponent. Naruto fought like a true shinobi, while he attacked like a wild animal. Atsui was disheartened, feeling like he was the loser all along. And deep down, He knew he was. Like most of his peers in his class, Atsui is a clan heir. But compared to him, he was the dead last. Even Omoi and Karui did better than him in their studies, and they are known to be the class slackers. Atsui boasted about his superiority because he felt he needed to. He wanted to feel like he mattered, especially among his female peers. But their attention was always shown towards Naruto instead. Naruto was the best in his class, and Atsui wanted to prove that he was better than him. But no matter how hard he tried, he still couldn't beat him or be on the same level as him. He didn't even need to try hard for all the girls in his class to fall for him instantly. Not only that, but he is part of a legendary clan of one of the two founders of Kumo. Atsui absolutely refuses to let someone else steal what's left of his spotlight. He thought Naruto was just a weakling who was only riding on the coattails of his clan's name to get what he wanted. But how wrong he was. Naruto is anything but. Naruto is actually very intelligent. He was almost as bright as Omoi, and he was the best when it came to book studies. And what happened earlier today proves that Naruto was also a talented fighter as well. Atsui knew that Naruto was barely trying during their spar. He had never felt so weak and worthless in his entire life. He doesn't even know how to compete with the Yotsuki anymore. He then heard the infirmary door opening, and whoever walked in was the last person he expected. Yotsuki. Hey, Atsui, if you come here to gloat, can you please leave? No, Atsui, I'm not here to gloat. I'm here to see how you are doing. Why do you care? You won. I lost. Why you're better than me. Is that what you thought the spar was all about? To prove that we are better than the other? Yeah, what else? Ha 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 ha. Naruto couldn't help but laugh softly at the Shiryoku's lack of knowledge of the matter. Atsui grew a thick mark on his head from the sudden laughter. Is Naruto making fun of his intelligence? What's so funny? Atsui yelled out, causing the blonde Yotsuki to slowly stop his laughter and tell him the reason. Atsui, do you know why Sensei says that the spar is a sacred Kumo tradition? It's because this village was built by shinobi clans. Atsui calmed himself down, so he could listen to the blonde Yotsuki's explanation further. I mean, sure, the Yotsuki and the Shiryoku are the founders, but they needed more shinobi clans to make it a strong and sustainable village. All different shinobis, of different clans, with different traditions would spar with one another to build friendships in harmony. To build something together and be stronger together. Atsui was silenced as he continued to listen with interest. That is what the seal of reconciliation is for Atsui. Because despite our heated confrontation, we can still reconcile and work together in the future. Because, in the end, we are all part of the same village. One village, one home, one clan. I still hope that you and I can still be friends, Atsui. So we can be stronger together, just like our ancestors before us. Naruto said with passion in his voice and gave a bright smile to the Shiryoku. Atsui was silenced even more. He was completely wrong about Naruto. He didn't call him a loser or make him feel like one. His words are sincere, and so is his offer of friendship. Atsui couldn't help but feel like a jerk. He was a prick. But maybe with Naruto's help, he could still be the shinobi he wants to be and gain a cool friend in the process. You should really consider taking Sensei's job as an instructor. You're a lot less boring than he is. Atsui said with a smirk. They both shared a laugh together at the joke of their monotone sensei. As Naruto was about to leave, Atsui called out to him. Naruto, wait, Atsui said before he extended his right hand and formed his fingers into his half of the seal of reconciliation to the blonde Yotsuki. Naruto smiled at the Shiryoku as he formed his own half of the seal to meet Atsui's. Locking fingers with each other, indicating that they have finally ended their match properly and reconciled as friends. Later, Samui. After Naruto told her that he and her annoying little brother were cool with each other, she told him that she wanted to fight him in their usual training spot. I wanted you to be my enemy, but my little brother was the lucky one, so we are going to fix that. That's what Samui had told Naruto after the blonde had asked her why she wanted to spar in just the two of them. Now, with a swift move, Naruto rushed her. Samui quickly threw a calf kick, and he quickly moved backward, barely dodging her powerful kick. She's precise, Naruto thought. With a quick jab punch, he tested her defenses, but Samui was ready for the attack. She swiftly moved her hand to deflect his strike, her movements fluid and graceful. He anticipated her next move and was ready when she attempted a judo throw. However, as she tried to get a grip on him, Naruto seized the opportunity and made a quick knee thrust directly to her stomach, leaving Samui momentarily stunned. Samui winced as she backed away, but neither Samui nor Naruto allowed each other time to breathe. This time Samui moved forward. She tried to do a sweep that would result in kicking the back of Naruto's legs, but before she could, Naruto quickly jumped upwards towards her face. Samui's reflexes were quick as she reacted by dodging Naruto's attack, but before she could counterattack, Naruto's legs moved around her neck, and he roughly brought her down to the ground. Samui felt the pressure on her neck as Naruto tried to squeeze it with his legs, but in a quick move, she kicked his face with all her might. Naruto blocked it with his forearm, wincing from the pain. That was all Samui needed to escape his leg grip. Both quickly kip up, facing each other. Naruto blocked all the sounds around him. He found himself grinning. Only his uncle and father could make his blood boil like this. With a quick movement, he threw a sidekick toward Samui, who reacted swiftly by grabbing his leg. However, he used his other leg to jump and perform an upward kick, hoping to catch Samui off guard. But Samui was quick to react, blocking his kick with ease. Naruto knew he had to come up with something new. With speed, he used his hands to perform a handstand, propelling himself upwards and away from Samui's reach, who quickly rushed him with a swift kick. Naruto just landed on his legs as the kick hit his stomach, and he gasped for air, but Samui quickly tried to kick him again. Still, Naruto quickly grabbed her leg, and she tried to do a full round kick when he jumped forward towards her, putting his right leg and arm above her neck. His arms quickly squeezed her neck, trying to force her to give up, but Samui was not ready to give up yet. She struggled and tried to hit his abdomen with her other leg, but Naruto was too fast. He quickly dodged the kick, and Samui escaped from his grip. Both of them stood up quickly, breathing heavily and ready to continue the fight. Naruto and Samui were locked in a fierce battle. The moment's intensity had completely consumed them, and they were oblivious to the noise around them. Their eyes were fixed on each other, their minds fully engaged in trying to win. At that moment, Naruto launched a powerful axe kick that was aimed straight at Samui's head. However, Samui quickly blocked the attack with a well-timed leg block before attempting to retaliate by delivering a swift kick to Naruto's leg in an effort to leave him with a severe bruise. However, Naruto swiftly moved to his left, dodging her attack and leaving her momentarily off balance. Taking advantage of the opening, Naruto followed up with a lightning-fast kick aimed straight at her face, causing her to wince in pain as she struggled to regain her footing. Naruto sends another kick with his feet when she crouches and sends a low kick right at Naruto's unoccupied feet. Naruto fell on his butt as Samui tried to get a hold of him, but he quickly used his legs around her neck, and she punched him under his knee, causing his grip to ease up a bit. As they stood up, the adrenaline was pumping through their veins as Samui and Naruto rushed towards each other with fierce determination. Samui quickly executed a perfect throw that sent Naruto tumbling onto the dirt. With a quick burst of strength, he launched himself off the ground and grabbed hold of Samui's body, using all the power in his feet and arms to hurl her forcefully toward the ground. The sound of the impact echoed through the air as the two combatants hit the ground with a thud, both determined to come out on top in this intense battle of strength and skill. She groaned in pain. Naruto was about to put his wooden knife on her neck when she kicked his shin. Naruto fell to the ground, but both were breathing heavily, ignoring the pain. It went on for another half an hour, and Naruto and Samui were full of bruises. "I think is enough for now," Samui said after 2 more hours of fighting like crazy. Her blue eyes look at Naruto intently. "Why yay, see you tomorrow, Samui." Naruto agreed as he massaged his sour shoulder. Samui nodded before walking away. "See you later, Naruto," Samui said as she swayed her hips while walking away, knowing the effect it had on Naruto. With a sigh, he drew his arms back to lean on them and looked up at the blue sky filtering through the tree branches. Blue like her eyes. He sighed again before getting up. He needed a cold shower to calm his racing heart. You humans make things very complicated sometimes, Kyuubi spoke, rolling his eyes. That's not true, Kyuubi. It is just not that simple. Naruto countered back as he jumped from tree to tree. It is. Just walk up to them and tell them that you have started liking both of them, including Mabui. It is as simple as that. Kyuubi said teasingly and chuckled when Naruto started stuttering like a fool. Despite being years since they had met, Kyuubi had yet to tell him his real name, but Naruto wasn't in any hurry to know it. He would give Kyuubi as much time as he needed. Right now, Kyuubi often talks with Naruto, but mainly to tease him. It had been 4 years since Naruto had started the academy, but that didn't mean he had stopped training. He had continued training a week after he had joined, first only chakra control, and his father would throw things at him sometimes when they were training him. Within the last 4 years, Naruto had trained and learned quite a few useful jutsus. When it came to his chakra control, he now could keep a leaf on his forehead, 5 kunai on the tip of his fingers, and stay upside down in a tree, and sometimes the same while standing on the water's surface. Now I started training him in taijutsu, running around the mountains like a slave, 200 runs without stopping, wearing weights that were 50 pounds on his legs and 30 pounds on his arms. I always said that he would get stronger with a lot of push-ups, sit-ups and drinking plenty of juice. Naruto was sitting on the water's surface. His legs crossed, 5 kunai in the tip of the fingers of his right hand. A leaf on his forehead, Kyuubi was giving him a bit of his chakra, which made it harder for Naruto to control his own and Kyuubi's chakra. Controlling both his and Kyuubi's chakra was more challenging, but Furball explained he needed to get used to his chakra. Does that mean you can tell me your name? Naruto asked excitedly, with hope in his eyes. But that hope was soon demolished when Kyuubi shook his head. Nah, I will once you learn how to respect your elders. Kyuubi said with a broad smirk that annoyed Naruto. That resulted in Naruto and Kyuubi throwing insults at each other for 1 hour straight before they got tired. I was close and keeping an eye on the young boy. He could feel Kyuubi's chakra leaking from Naruto. He was still impressed to see that Kyuubi would cooperate with anyone. But still, he was happy about it. Naruto's eyes were red, and he looked at Ai, who had his arms folded. Naruto kept his focus and tried not to make mistakes in his training. I had promised to start training him on elemental manipulation once he could do chakra control exercises, while using Kyuubi's chakra was a good motivation for the blonde. So far, so good, and Naruto couldn't wait to start elemental manipulation. A few years ago, he had learned that his elements were lightning, water, earth, and wind. With lightning being his primary, strongest element, and water being his secondary. The list of jutsus he had learned from his old man was quite long. When it came to Fuinjutsu, he was in level 4, and it took him 7 months to pass level 3. To pass level 4, Naruto needed to write a trap seal, chakra flowing seal, and weight seals. He was sure he was close to completing a chakra flowing seal. That seal could block someone's chakra flow and storage chakra to save it for later use. The blonde was taken by surprise when he realized that he was very good at using Fuinjutsu since from all main shinobi villages on the continent, Kumo was the second worst village when it came to Fuinjutsu. When he asked his father if his mother knew Fuinjutsu, his father mainly dodged the question. Naruto wondered what all that was about but didn't pry on it. When his father was ready, he would tell him everything, including who was. You're done now, Naruto. He looked up at Ai, who motioned for him to stand up. Naruto nodded, a little relieved, taking a deep breath to feel fresh again as air filled his lungs. Now that you're done with that, we can start with a spar. Ai suggested with a broad smirk while cracking his knuckles. Naruto felt a shiver in his spine, knowing his grandpa was stronger than his father, but he smiled nonetheless. He had wanted to start training for real for a while now. Follow me, I commanded, motioning for the blonde to follow him. As they walked down the mountain, Naruto's mind went to what Kyuubi had told him about the other bijus in the world. Naruto had been curious about the other biju and wondered how they were and what kind of character they had. Naruto was back in his mindscape. The forest was back to how it was before. Kyuubi was lying on the grass behind the cage, he looked to be sleeping, but one of his eyes was slightly opened, looking at Naruto's form walking toward him. Naruto frowned every time he saw the damn cage. He had asked Kyuubi if he could open the seal, but he told him that even if he could, he wasn't ready yet. Kyuubi, one thing I have been wondering, you said the first Hokage captured your brothers and sisters. Who are they? And where are they besides Gyuki and Matabi? Naruto asked with curiosity sparking in his eyes. His hands clutched behind his head. He knew that there were 9 Biju out there, but he wanted to learn more about them. He had already met Gyuki. The octopus ox was quite funny. Matabi was, strange, to say the least. She kept rambling about claiming mate or some shit that he didn't understand. But she was funny, and the meeting had ended with her licking him from head to toe with her giant tongue, much to the amusement of Yugito. Kyuubi raised an eyebrow but was happy that Naruto wanted to know more about them. As you know, there are 9 of us, Shukaku, One-Tail Raccoon, my youngest brother. He always liked to fight and was always a bit cozy. Hell, almost as much as me, his abilities are to control sand. You already know Matabi. She has blue flames and is annoying. Next is Isobu, the 3-tails turtle. He was always calm and the quiet one and always liked water. All his techniques are water jutsus. Son Goku, the 4-tails monkey. Naruto furrowed a brow at the name. He could have sworn he had heard that name before. Naruto shrugged his shoulders, ignoring the strange name. Sun is wise but irritating. His ability is lava release. Then is Kokuo, the 5-tails horse. He is more like a free spirit. He doesn't like when someone tries to tell him what to do and likes to run. And easy to make friends with, and his ability is boil release. Then is Saiken, the 6-tails slug. He's quiet and cooperative and always likes to find a non-combat way to fix problems. His ability is to use acid that can melt everything. If you ever meet his Jinchuriki, be careful. He's top 4 Biju and should not be taken lightly. Kyuubi warned him with a serious tone, and Naruto nodded, knowing Kyuubi wouldn't call just anyone dangerous. Then is Chome, the 7-tails beetle. She's the positive one. She always called herself Lucky 7 or other annoying names like that. She was friendly and always liked to talk and crack jokes. She can fly and use insects. Then is Gyuki. You already know him. The most annoying out of all of us. Kyuubi finished, then stood in all his 4 with 9 tails showing behind him like mountains, and finally me. Kyuubi, the 9-tails demon fox, the strongest, he exclaimed with a deep voice that sent shock waves. The blonde rolled his eyes at his antics, despite being thousands of years old. He was still immature. Thank you for telling me, Kyuubi. I hope you can meet them again, Naruto said. God, I hope not. Having Gyuki and Matabi is enough headache for me. I don't need the others. Naruto escaped his thoughts when he felt a gentle nudge on his ribs. His Gigi was looking at him with a raised eyebrow. Talking to him again, he asked, but more like stating he was already used to it since B does the same sometimes with Gyuki. No, just remembered something, Naruto replied before looking up at him with curiosity. Gigi, I have noticed that in the past year, you keep telling father to be more in the rakeage office. Any particular reason why? Naruto asked, already having an idea of why that might be. It wasn't really a secret that his Gigi was old, and perhaps his time to retire had come. From your tone, I take it you already know. You want him to be the 4th rakeage, Naruto asked, but more like a statement as his Gigi nodded, confirming it. I have gotten old, Naruto, if Kumo were to face something in the near future. I want my son to be the one that leads the village. I will serve on the battlefield. His Gigi said with a thoughtful look on his face as they kept walking. I suddenly felt Naruto's hand grabbing his. Don't worry, Gigi. I will keep father in line whenever he needs it, and I will be with you on the battlefield to watch your back. Naruto promised with a broad smile on his face. I looked away. He really hated the effect Naruto still had on him. His eyes burning, he patted the top of Naruto's head. I know you will. You're a good kid, I said, while himself hoping that his grandson in everything but blood would never be in a war. Oh well, time to train, he suddenly said, changing the subject, and moved further back from Naruto. The blonde took a stance, and so did I, his face changing from a smiling one to a serious one. Face me, Naruto. Naruto moved first with his fist aiming at his Gigi, and I quickly jumped away much faster than Naruto predicted and hit him in the head. The blonde quickly moved away and narrowed his eyes. He always knew I was stronger than he let on, but now he understood he was much stronger. Very well, Naruto whispered and moved faster than before, caughting I by surprise, who jumped to avoid his fist, but Naruto jumped as well, trying to hit him with his leg. I dodged everything without much effort, landing on the ground before rushing towards Naruto faster than before. Later, after hours of training, Naruto was panting on the ground, sweating, his shirt wet, his fists had bruises, and bleeding a little, a few bruises on his face and stomach. His weights were still on his body. Despite the pain, he refused to stop. I looked at him with interest, wondering if Naruto would call it a day. Then Naruto did a hand seal. Blue chakra engulfed his body like blue fire. He smirked and rushed at his Gigi with twice the speed he had before. I was taken by surprise, ready to dodge, when his grandson jumped up in the air. Naruto raised his fist above him. I jumped and moved away, but when Naruto's fist hit the ground, split like an egg, debris flying everywhere. The crater created was as large as Naruto, who stood in the middle of it panting before he collapsed unconscious on the ground. What was that? That was quite a fist, I thought, and moved closer to the sleeping form of Naruto. I smiled with pride. It seemed his grandson was getting better with each passing day. Later, it had been 3 months since his spar with I, and they had stepped up his training. Now he needed to run 300 times around the mountains, with 70 pounds on his legs and 50 on his arms. Climb up 100 meters with the same weight and not use chakra. Naruto couldn't complain. He wanted to get stronger to become the best Kage ever, and he wouldn't get stronger by sitting around and being lazy. Taking deep breaths, filling his lungs with fresh air, he relaxed and continued his morning run. He reached his 319 runs but wanted to do 350 runs around the mountain. Naruto always did that. Every morning, when he was doing 200 runs, he would do 250 instead. As he kept running and running and running, and still running, Kyuubi was watching with amusement but not helping in any way. Naruto had told him not to help him with running exercises, or at any kind of exercise that wasn't required his help. He wanted to do it on his own. Kyuubi only helped when Naruto lost consciousness or was hurt during a spar or when seals blew on his face, which was quite unpleasant. After running for 1 more hour, Naruto finished his last run around the mountain and fell on his knees, panting. Sweat was everywhere around his body, and even his clothes looked slightly transparent. He was resting on his stomach, desperately trying to catch his breath. Naruto saw his Gigi appear before him in a flash of lightning. I really need to learn that jutsu, the blonde thought as his grandfather gave him a water skin bottle. He grabbed it without thinking, gulping down as much water as possible, feeling better already. Easy, not so fast, I warned him, stopping him from drinking as if he was dying of thirst. After 10 minutes, he felt relieved and much better before following I back to their home. I will start your elemental training, Gigi told him, walking beside the blonde whose face brightened up like a star in the night sky. As soon as he finished his elemental training, he could finally start learning one of the most powerful jutsus in the world. Lightning armor. And adding his purple lightning. No one will stand a chance, Naruto thought with a dreamy look. Reaching the house, he saw his father standing in front of the house with a smile. Naruto already knew he would be here, but he still smiled and ran at him, giving him a big hug. Father hugged him back and messed the top of his head. 2 blonde fangs reached his shoulders, something that reminded a too much of Minato, making it even harder to hide the fact that Naruto wasn't his son. They looked nothing alike. I was suspicious that even Naruto knew, or at the very least was suspicious that there was something off about his looks compared to his father, uncle, and grandfather, but had decided to keep it quiet. How are you, Naruto? I hope you're training well, I asked with a smile, getting rid of his thoughts for now, taking a step back, and giving his son a good look. His face was full of light, almost like a sun shining on him. Naruto was wearing a white jacket and a black shirt underneath, black pants with black shinobi sandals. Yes. I'm running around the mountain like crazy. I will soon reach your level. Databeo, he stated with a fist in the air. Smiled proudly, grabbed a scroll from his pocket, and tossed it at Naruto. Confusion filled his face, but he opened the scroll to see what it was all about. Opening the scroll, he read the name of the jutsu. B rank. Lightning Clone Jutsu, he read, and a smile spread from ear to ear. You're gonna teach me the famous lightning clone jutsu of the second Raikage, Naruto shouted enthusiastically, looking up at his father, who shook his head in denial, much to the blonde's confusion. No, you will learn it without my help. Let's see how fast you can do it, A said strictly, looking down at Naruto, who furrowed a brow before his eyes filled with burning determination, accepting the challenge. Naruto ran deep into the nearby forest and opened the scroll. The place was quiet. The wind passed through the forest speaking with the wind, as his hair tried to fly away with the wind, a hand stopping his hair from blocking his view. Naruto felt the warm breeze against his face. The grass beneath his legs caressed his skin. 1 hour later, we're drinking tea. His son just told him they had received reports of Jiraiya the Sannin being seen in Kumo, but the man disappeared when I tried to check if the rumors were true. I was hoping the Sannin hadn't heard about Naruto. His grandson wasn't ready yet to know the truth. At least that's what I and A told themselves over and over. Glancing outside, he saw the sun was high in the sky. I wondered how long it would take for Naruto to master lightning clone jutsu. At the same time, he couldn't stop thinking about what I had told him 3 months ago. According to him, Naruto could create a small crater with just his fist alone. I tested Naruto again, same results. His fists were quite strong. Just like Tsunade. A thought, with a conflicted look forming on his face. His son was showing more and more signs that he wasn't from Kumo. From him being good in Fuinjutsu, water being his second best element, blonde hair like Minato, and now an ability that only Tsunade can use. Before he could think more about it, he heard a shout outside the house. Lightning clone jutsu, Naruto shouted outside. A burst opens the door, only to see around 30 Naruto clones jumping around with their fists raised in the air. Who he assumed was the real Naruto walked up to the front of the crowd with a beaming smile. Punching the air. I did it, Databeo. All Naruto clones shouted together at the same time. Father smiled proudly, as did I, who looked impressed that he could do it so fast. Naruto. I shouted, grabbing his attention and walking over to him. Now that you have done it, let's start with a spar, he suggested, cracking his knuckles with a smirk. Naruto jumped in excitement, accepting the challenge. Good, and use everything you have. No holding back in any way, I demanded, preparing to beat up his son. The clones disappeared, leaving only him and his father. I walked away, giving them enough space. Naruto cracked his knuckles like his father, warming up a little before it started. I noticed that Naruto didn't remove his weights but decided to force Naruto to his limits. Kid, fight me with the intention to kill. I demanded as his chakra spiked up, everything shaking around him, as his legs dug deeply into the ground. Naruto rushed at A with all his speed. His speed was easily high genin speed, but I knew he still had his weights on. Naruto threw a punch at him, but I grabbed it effortlessly. I noticed the power behind the punch. Reminding him a little of Tsunade. Naruto punched again and again, trying to find an opening. I could see through all his moves, but instead of countering back, I decided to simply dodge everything. Seeing that his plan wasn't working, Naruto jumped high in the air and made a few hand seals. Water style. Ball pressure, he shouted, throwing a giant water ball towards him that exploded in drops of water the moment it touched the ground. His father dodged it effortlessly, but Naruto was behind him. With all his strength, his punch connected with his father's back. The strength behind his fist was outstanding. I flinched slightly at the pain. I always knew Naruto was stronger than he was at his age. The blonde rushed towards him, not letting his father have time to rest and catch his breath. His fists glowed in red chakra. Kyuubi had allowed him access to his chakra for this fight. His father smirked proudly and, on purpose, blocked the fist with his palm. That made the ground beneath crack, as dirt started rising as A's feet dug deep into the ground. I grabbed his whole arm before smashing him against the ground, only for him to turn into electricity. Before it could tell where the real Naruto was, a boulder was heading toward him. His father destroyed the boulder with his fist. Naruto landed roughly on the ground, and it was right in front of him before punching him in the gut. Naruto turned into lightning, much to A's surprise, who immediately turned around to block a fist from Naruto, which made the ground behind A break like glass, but A himself didn't budge, not even an inch. Naruto jumped away, gaining some distance between himself and his father. Quickly doing several hand seals, his body engulfed in blue chakra. A storage chakra seal, A said, impressed by his son. Naruto grabbed a kunai and threw it at A, who quickly dodged it but felt a small cut on his thumb. Naruto's whole right arm was covered in chakra and was in front of A with low chunin speed. A moved away, and Naruto's fist hit the ground, creating a massive crack on the ground. The ground split, debris flying everywhere. Breathing heavily, Naruto felt a sharp metal at the back of his head. You lost control, A said, a little disappointed, but then he felt a sharp pain in his leg. Looking over his shoulder to see another Naruto with a kunai. His father smiled with pride, not bothered by the small wound, nothing a cup of tea couldn't fix. When did you create that clone? A asked, clearly impressed. When I first used my water ball jutsu, Naruto replied with a cheeky grin. A smiled before messing Naruto's hair again. At first, he was annoyed that Naruto would lose control so easily, but it seemed that wasn't the case. The time has come for you to learn how to properly use your purple lightning ability. Thanks for listening. In the next part. In the meantime, please leave a review, I would love to hear your feedback. Especially if it helps me improve the overall story.